I think a lot of you can remember exactly where you were on April 15th, 2019, when the Notre Dame caught on fire. And since then, one of the biggest questions that people have been asking is, when will it reopen, and how far along have they come with the work? That's what this episode is going to be about today. I'm going to explore the Notre Dame from the outside, trying to figure out where we're at. And in this interview, you're going to hear a couple of things, actually. You're going to hear a chat with one of the carpenters, a Danish guy called Magnus Frimalasson. And I met him out the front of the Notre Dame while he was chipping away at an ancient piece of wood with an ancient-looking axe, actually. So I'll be talking to him about the reconstruction job. You're also going to hear me out exploring. You're going to hear me going into the crypt. You're going to hear my thoughts on, well, I'll tell you now, the exceptional virtual reality visit you can do to the Notre Dame, which is just in front of the entrance. I didn't even know about this place, and I went and saw it. Exceptional, really. Also, you'll hear the latest on when they say it's going to reopen, but it'll all start with some music from Press Maxon. This is the Earful Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G. You're listening to the AB season, and N is for Notre Dame. Now that song is a bit of a doozy. Listen to this from Press Maxon, our resident musician. He says, as a tribute to the letter N for Notre Dame, I started listening to albums recorded on the organ in Notre Dame de Paris. And whoa, baby, was that a rabbit hole. In fact, it's all too interesting to go into right now, which is why I wrote about it at length on my Substack this week. I'll link that in the show notes. But let's just talk about Louis Vierne for one moment. He was born nearly blind in central France, was identified as a musical prodigy as early as age 2, and was the organist at Notre Dame from 1900 until 1937, when he died at the organ console in Notre Dame in the middle of his 1,750th recital in the cathedral. So for this week's tune, I took the melody from his composition that he played minutes before his death in Notre Dame. I dusted off the organ in my basement studio and recorded my rendition of the main theme from Triptyque pour Grand Orgue, Opus 58, Movement 2, titled Communion. Enjoy. And I certainly did. Press Maxon, that is a killer story. That is amazing. Also, it reminds me, visiting the organ. Now, I know I've talked about the Notre Dame at length in other episodes, especially after it burned down, but I'm not quite sure if I told the story about how just a couple weeks, maybe a couple months before it burned down, I was invited to visit the cathedral after hours. So there were no tourists there. It was early evening, and we were taken around all the way up to the top. And it was very moving standing at those organs looking down over the cathedral. So, yeah, it's really, I mean, when it burned down, I think a lot of people sort of, their mind flashed back to the last time they'd been there. And that was, I'd had this really exceptional experience there. And it really hit hard. And that organ is fantastic. That organ, in fact, you can get a really close look at it in the virtual reality thing I'll be telling you about later. But, this is a half-on-the-go episode before we get to the interview with the carpenter. I'll just set you up again properly for what you're going to hear. You're going to hear me walking around the Notre Dame, going into the crypt, free to enter at the sort of, maybe 1 minute walk from the front door of the Notre Dame, heading west. Then, if you were to head an extra, 10 seconds to the west, you'll get to the Notre Dame virtual reality thing, which is criminally underrated. Imagine it's been open since January and I never felt the urge to go. No one told me how good it is. And that was part of the Journée de patrimoine, the days when you can get into all the special buildings in France. They had all the woodworkers, stone cutters, painters, everyone who's working on the Notre Dame was sort of plying their trades out the front of the cathedral, and I took the chance to talk to them. So that's what you're in for. Hit the organ again, press, and let's take it away to the Île de la Cité. So I'm standing out the front of the Notre Dame Cathedral on a beautiful day, and there's the cathedral in all its glory, surrounded by 4 enormous cranes, all of which are whirring around, spinning around, hopefully, presumably, making progress. Now, if you haven't been here for a while, it does look a little bit different. The facade looks exactly the same, but in front of it, they've cordoned off a whole lot of it. So there's maybe half of the big parvis out the front, the big square out the front. You can only access half, but the way that they've made up for that is they've built a sort of I don't know what you'd call it. It's like seating in a stadium, you know. There's probably room for 200 people to sit on tiered seating, this temporary wooden thing, so you can get up and get a little bit of a look over the bit that they've fenced off, see the progress. And what I figured I'd do today is go into the crypt archéologique, so the archaeological crypt that's out the front of the Notre Dame. It's free to enter, and as I've heard from several people, there's a cool display on at the moment, something 3D or virtual reality, and hopefully we can get some answers as to when it's gonna open again. One fun thing, people watching out the front of the Notre Dame. I feel like it probably hasn't changed much in the 800 years or so since the Notre Dame's been standing here. Hasn't changed in that there's crowds here, people trying to sell things, people trying to buy things, people trying to see the cathedral, probably people trying to pick your pocket. Hasn't changed at all, but also so many tourists here, all these different guides telling their stories, holding their flags. It's a fun atmosphere. It's worth coming down here almost just for the people watching, but not now. Instead, we're going to descend into the archaeological crypt. Free to enter. I haven't been here for quite a while. I'm intrigued to see what it's like down there. And there's big silver signs saying, from antiquity to the 18th century, experience the immersion into the history of Paris. And then another sign saying, from Victor Hugo to Viollet-le-Duc, obviously referring to Victor Hugo, the author who wrote Notre Dame, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and saved this place, as we've talked about on the podcast before. But to Eugène Viollet-le-Duc is the guy who was largely involved in the rebuilding of it. So, and a hero of mine, I should add. Worked on Carcassonne and many other famous places around France. Now let's get inside and see what it's like. Alright, I came in, I asked the friendly guy at the front about the new 3D virtual thing, and he said, monsieur, you're confounded. Confounded, he said, you've got the wrong place, it's across the road. And, well, the story of my life has been confounded or confused. So instead of turn around and go back where he suggests, I thought I'd have a quick look in here. It's been a while since I've been here, and it really is something. I'm in here now on a Wednesday around lunchtime, practically empty, free to get in. There's thousands of tourists swarming above, and I think it's something to see. Down here we've got, it looks like something very much what you'd see in Rome, you know. There's all these ancient ramparts. These aren't the Philippe Auguste ramparts that I usually talk about, but you go one level down, full of these old stones that were once some kind of city wall. And if you're interested in the history of Paris or even architecture, I'm sure there's something to say. I'll find a sign and get the facts exactly right. But in the meantime, I'll take some pictures. This exhibition is nothing short. I mean, exhibition. These remnants, these vestiges of history are nothing short of utterly fascinating. There's a danger. I think a lot of listeners know that I'm obsessed with the Philip Auguste wall, which is from the 12th century, so 800 years ago. Where we're standing now, or where I'm standing anyway, is from the 4th century. This is the ramparts from just after the Roman times, from antiquity, when there was a wall around the Ile de la Cité. And I was just reading about it now, really fascinating that a lot of the blocks that they used, these big limestone blocks, were what the Romans took from previous buildings around the place. So they said they're recycled. And it's so intriguing to think of the history of all these stones, these strong walls from 1600 years ago that still stand. And more intriguing is to think what else is undiscovered underneath all the buildings on the Ile de la Cité. As much as I could hang around these ramparts, unfortunately this is an episode about Notre Dame. So I'm going to have to do the quick tour. And I will say this, a quick tour is possible in this place, this crypt. Easily you could get in and out in 10 minutes, and a lot of the information is in English. So win-win-win-win-win, my kind of place, but I won't hang around. Okay, I press English.
Yes, you add a member, you put your name, whatever you want.
Can I have a code name?
Yeah, it's, as it's written.
Okay, I'll put DJILA. Do you know what that is?
Gila?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to?
Yeah.
It's something, is someone famous?
It's connected to Notre Dame.
Gila?
Yeah. It's the name of Esmeralda's goat.
Oh, yeah.
I just learned that in the crypt.
Yeah.
So that will be my username.
In fact, I knew about the goat, but
you
name,
did not.
But but the name I wasn't.
How do you say it? Gila?
I think it's Gila. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, that's my name for today, I think.
So you will be the goat?
Well, I usually am. Thanks, Gila. Let's go. Hello, bonjour. So to paint the picture, what I can see, it looks like we're about to go. I have no idea what's about to happen, but it looks like we're about to go in a room where all the walls are painted in blue and white with no apparent shapes. They're like just lines and crosses and stuff. And I assume when we put the virtual reality goggles on, it'll look like we're walking through Notre Dame, I presume. I'll take pictures of what you can see with your eyes, but I mean that's obviously the least interesting bit. So I just see grey lights and loading, but even though I know there's people around me, I can see forever. Now I understand why people fall over when they're doing these games where they're playing snooker or boxing or whatever. I can even see people in front of me now. Wow, okay, it's turning on. Yes.
So I'm going to start the experience. Okay. For the moment, stay there. They will tell you we can move on. Okay.
Okay.
We should go experience.
This is fascinating. Okay, 10 out of 10 already, and it hasn't even begun. So, the woman's talking in my ear. Okay, I'll have to record afterwards. This is too fantastic. Okay, that was nothing short of exceptional. Exceptional. I don't know how often I say that about anything, but my mind was blown. I'm not even kidding. That was 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Let me try and... I mean, it's the most visual thing ever, this virtual reality walk through Notre Dame, but let me try and explain it. It was impossible for me to record while I was doing it, so I've got to give you the review. It was, you go in, you strap on a backpack, which strapping on a backpack, or like, it felt like I was going on a ride, which isn't something I generally associate with Paris. It was like a kind of new excitement, something new and different. You put on the headset, and then straight away, I don't want to spoil it too much either, but they take you through like 800 years ago in Paris. So you're walking up to the big building with all these characters walking around in their medieval clothes. The rain is falling. You see, like, you can look in every direction, up, down, around, and they've got like this video. You feel like you're part of it. And then you continue, you get into the building, and you see it through all the stages of its time that it's been built, right? The thing that was particularly exciting about it is they tell you where to walk. So there's little blue boxes. You walk forward a few steps, and every now and then they say, tread on this platform and stand still, and then it makes it look like you're going up to the top to see the bell or the view or I don't know, the scaffolding in the ancient times. And even though you're just standing still in a room, it feels like you're going up. The view is changing until you're standing on the top of the Notre Dame. Unless you got vertigo, I heard some people in the background screaming every now and again. As long as you can remember that you're just standing in a blue room, and as long as you don't, I don't know, get kind of somewhat claustrophobic perhaps, I can't understand why you wouldn't do that straight away. Espace Notre Dame. Absolutely worth 25 euros or 30 euros or whatever it was. I can't give it a better review than that. What a cool, I mean, just like, I'll tell you what, they gave a lot of facts about the kings and the dates, and as anyone who knows me knows, I don't really care too much when they get into too much detail, but just purely visual, it was stunning. So if you imagine you going up on the scaffolding as they're building Notre Dame in the 1100s, and you see the view out over Paris in every direction, access, like you don't, it's impossible to get it anywhere else. I loved it. I could have done it without the sound, to be honest. It was just, the visuals were incredible. The sound was great too. If you love the dates and the kings, you're going to love it as well. I guess the only thing I don't know is if it's actually going to be open in time for the Olympic Games. I'll try and find that out before the end, and I'll get back to you. That's the big mystery. I felt like maybe the right person to ask is one of the people who are actually building it, one of the carpenters. And as luck would have it, the recording of this podcast episode tied in very neatly with the Journée de Patrimoine, or the Patrimony Days, when a lot of the big old buildings are open to the public. And Notre Dame, while it didn't open to the public as a cathedral, they opened up the square out the front to do a sort of meet and greet with the people working on the cathedral, and it was really fascinating. Of course, I went and spoke to a whole bunch of them, but even just watching it, you had the stone cutters there, the repainters, the carpenters, the roofers, the metal workers, the stone cutters, and they were all plying their trade. It kind of felt a little bit like it would have felt perhaps 850 years ago, but I was standing there watching, taking some videos, taking some pictures. I'll share it all on social media, but just seeing them doing this out the front of the Notre Dame was something really special. So figuring that you guys at home might want to hear a little bit about it as well, I approached a man who turned out to be a Danish carpenter who'd come to Notre Dame specifically to work on the cathedral. And I saw he was holding a mighty axe, and I said, do you mind if I snag you for a few minutes? This is what happened. So tell me, are you enjoying this process? Is it difficult? Is it fun?
It's been a great pleasure to be part of this incredible project. Several elements of that, the craft, being able to work in the same ways that this cathedral was originally crafted. Meaning not necessarily using the same tools, but using the same mental tools, maybe one could say, in terms of conception and tracing the joinery, tracing the layout, finding the angles, finding the lengths, conceiving of the carpentry in space. That's been very special.
But tell me, like, when you were were you in Copenhagen or near Copenhagen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so were you working as a carpenter there?
Yes.
So when you heard that Notre Dame needed to be rebuilt, you were like, okay, I'm getting on the next plane, basically.
Yeah.
Is it because you were into churches or something?
I was into historic carpentry, and parts of this carpentry is a very old carpentry, it's medieval carpentry. So it's always very interesting to work on these projects where you get this huge insight into how people must have worked in the period and in their day, and how they must have thought about their processes, how they went about building a roof structure like this. Honestly, it's quite humbling to see that the things that we find, if not challenging, then at least somewhat involved, that they could have been realized 800 years ago, say.
Amazing. And you told me that you're using a mix of, like, you know, chainsaws and stuff, but also you were just using a specific tool. I was watching you.
Right.
That was based on what they were using 800 years ago?
Yeah. I was just demonstrating the use of doloir, which is a French hewing axe, a single bevel hewing axe that's slightly twisted, so it allows you to work very close to the face and to make a nice finishing by axe. And that's the way that the carpentry of both but the nef and the curl, the western and eastern sides of the roof, they've all been finished. All the pieces have been finished in this way to give the original finish.
Because what you were just doing, I mean, that must take ages just to chip the sides off the hewing, you called it, right?
Yeah.
Compared to today, you could just use some kind of saw that just goes boom.
Yeah.
Right.
You could use a bandsaw, which is what has been used for the parts of the carpentry that were reconstructed in the 1860s with Viollet-le-Duc.
Yes.
So all those parts that were before the fire were in sawnwood. Those have been reconstructed with sawnwood.
Can you just tell us exactly which bit you're working on?
Yes.
Magnus from Denmark. What are you creating here?
I've been working on the curl side, the choir, the carpentry over the choir.
So just to get my perspective, that's the choir. You like sort of in the middle where they.
That's the east side of the.
Okay.
That's behind what you see here.
So away from the Parvi.
Yep,
Yeah, I get you.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a some 30-meter long carpentry structure with a very special rounded hipped gable, which has been quite special to work on in terms of layout and cutting the joinery.
Well done. Well, continue the great job that you're doing, Magnus, and thank you for talking to me.
Maybe I'll just add one thing that is...
Sure.
When you asked which parts of this project have been memorable, what comes to mind is the processes and the craft, which is what I came here for. But I think what I found here is also the network, all the people I've met through the project. We have many people, we have an incredible know-how, we have architects that have an incredible insight into these medieval structures, and just to know that all these things that I have been personally interested in and have had some networks around, of course, but meeting all these people that are all very, very passionate about just medieval carpentry has been great. So yeah, really great to meet lots of great people on the project.
That's amazing. How many people are there working on this?
I'm not sure I'm not even sure how many we are in total.
How many in your team?
We've been a team of maybe 20 at most.
Wow,
working
okay.
on the carpentry.
Wow. Well, that's great.
A few more on the hewing because it took a lot of work in the beginning.
I mean, just today there must be at least 50 or 100 people working,
Yeah,
so it's a
I'm
big
sure.
job.
I'm sure.
So that was Magnus Frimalarsson. I took loads of nice pictures of him and the others, videos as well, doing their stuff out the front of Notre Dame. I'll be sharing it on social media this week. Just search the Eiffel Tower, even on YouTube. As for when it will reopen, the latest word from the Paris Tourism Board is December 8th, 2024. I know there was a lot of talk of them getting it done in time for the Olympics. It looks like that's not going to happen. They're going to have one special service a little bit earlier, at Te Deum, but that is not when it's going to be open to the public, so you'll have to wait until December next year. I'll be there. I'll be in the line ready to get in there. I hope you will be too. But that rounds it up for this episode of the Eiffel Tower. Next week, I'll be back with O, featuring a short but interesting high-profile interview. Good luck guessing what O will be for. If you enjoy this show, if you like it, if you want to see it thrive and you want some extras, become a Patreon member at patreon.com/the Eiffel Tower. If you do it quickly, you'll be able to score an invite to the October 19th event. It's right there at the top of the Patreon page. It'll be fun to meet some of you guys in the 12th arrondissement, but where will we be? Otherwise, consider booking a walking tour. I've been doing a lot of them on Monday mornings, semi-private tours, but we have guides doing Marais, Montmartre, the Louvre, and more recently, a sort of like a local tour of the 12th arrondissement into the markets up on the high rise. Those kind of things along the viaduct with a picnic at the end. Get in touch. Watch on social media. It's a great way to have a fun walk in Paris and support the show at the same time. That'll do it for me. My name is Oliver G. This has been the Eiffel Tower. Thanks to Press Maxim for the music and Eddie G for the editing. I'll be back again next week. Merci beaucoup and au revoir.